Stories shape how we see the world. Voice of Witness is an award-winning oral history nonprofit harnessing the transformative power of storytelling. We work with individuals and communities impacted by injustice, helping them document their lived experiences through oral history, telling their own stories in their own words. In an era of reductive sound bites, we need this kind of nuanced grassroots storytelling to create a more just future. Visit voiceofwitness.org/learn to get involved, check out our workshops, and download tools to support your own project. Join us in building a more connected world, one story at a time.
The first 100 days of a new presidential administration have the potential to be the most impactful.
Campaign promises and concepts of plans begin to take shape and become reality.
I'm Sara.
And I'm Beth.
Together, we host Pantsuit Politics, a podcast where we take a different approach to the news.
Join us for this different approach where we ask questions, resist hot takes, and have fun no matter what the world serves up.
We'll get you through the first 100 days and beyond of the new Trump administration. Stay informed without all the anxiety.
Join us for new episodes every Tuesday and Friday wherever you get your podcast.
Lemonada. Hello and welcome to Good Things. I'm your host, Gloria Riviera. In Baltimore, among employment barriers, young people are finding ways to create their own economic opportunities through entrepreneurship. There's a lot of exciting work underway to provide these entrepreneurs with more support. We've got two great guests with us today. Dr. Ron Williams, Director at the Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship at Coppin State University, and Sara Cooper, Senior Associate for Economic Opportunity at the Annie E. Casey Foundation. Together, they'll help us unpack the findings from two research reports. First, a 2017 study from the Annie E. Casey Foundation on reshaping workforce development in Baltimore City. Then, a study covering a recent collaboration with the Casey Foundation and Coppin State University examining entrepreneurship training opportunities for youth and young adults in the city. With these insights, they'll show us where we go from here to create clearer pathways to entrepreneurship opportunities in Baltimore. Ron and Sara, thank you so much for joining us on Good Things. It's nice to see you both.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Likewise.
We will talk about all the great work that you're doing, but I think for our listeners, it would be valuable to hear some of the basics. So from both of you, when we talk about youth entrepreneurship, what does that mean? Ron, what comes to mind for you?
Opportunity for youth to create ways to grow and to develop value. And when I say develop value, I mean develop value for their families, for themselves, for their community. But the first stage of entrepreneurship is opportunity awareness. So stepping into that opportunity, but then having the freedom to develop ways to sustain themselves and to grow.
And I would imagine a lot of confidence comes in that process. I'd like to transition to the 2017 report from the Annie Casey Foundation, where you are, Sara.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about young entrepreneurs today in Baltimore? There are many. Based on that research, who are they? What is really driving their interest in starting their own businesses? What did that report find and what stood out?
Absolutely. You know, Baltimore was rocked by the death of Freddie Gray in 2015. And that event exposed deeply rooted inequities for young people. And what was happening in Baltimore at that time was a lot of investment started flowing, much needed investment, into the city. And there was one particular investment that happened from the U.S. Department of Labor, and funded a demonstration project called One Baltimore for Jobs. But what was happening was there were issues with recruitment, engagement, and retention of young people. And so the program officer that preceded me at the Casey Foundation became really curious about the why. And so she partnered with a group of other young community leaders in Baltimore to peel back the onion, like what's happening with this, and developed a really awesome participatory research study that really went out and talked to young people around their why. Why are they may not be engaging? What are their career aspirations? What's working in the city and what's not? And what came out of that was this report and a set of about 11 recommendations. And one of those recommendations was around entrepreneurship. Young people in Baltimore crave entrepreneurship and resources to build businesses that are free from discrimination and benefit their communities. When the research team went out and talked with many, many young people, more than a third of those young people saw entrepreneurship as a priority. And some of the reasons why: they were experiencing discriminatory practices in traditional employment. They have incredible ideas and talents. One young person shared that they have a YouTube channel dedicated to dog grooming, helping people train their dogs and making organic dog food. I mean, how incredible is that? Another young person was taking computers apart and rebuilding them as a hobby, not even realizing that that could be a business, if they have the learning, the guidance that Dr. Williams was talking about. So it's pretty powerful findings, and also this deep need for young people to give back to their own communities. So that's what we found out.
We're going to take a quick break, but we will be right back with more on Good Things.
Interested in the power of first-person storytelling? The Voice of Witness book series documents the oral histories of people directly impacted by and fighting against injustice. Each collection supports historically excluded communities to tell their own stories in their own words. The books feature a diversity of voices, including those of refugees and immigrants, incarcerated people, communities displaced from public housing, farm workers, indigenous peoples, and more. These powerful stories highlight crucial issues and expose the impacts of harmful narratives and policies, laying the groundwork to build solidarity and movements for change. Voice of Witness books are read and used by thousands of educators, organizations, and advocates across the country each year. Visit voiceofwitness.org/read to learn more, access free resources, and get involved. This message is brought to you by Cologuard, a non-invasive colon cancer screening test. Did you know that colon cancer is considered the most preventable yet least prevented cancer? When caught at early stages, colon cancer is survivable in 90% of people, so screening and early detection are key to reducing overall colon cancer deaths. That's why the American Cancer Society recommends that if you're at average risk, you begin screening for colon cancer at age 45, and a convenient way to do that is with the Cologuard test. The Cologuard test is delivered to your door and allows you to feel more in control of your colon cancer screening and do it on your own schedule with none of the prep that is required of a colonoscopy. Plus, the Cologuard test is affordable. Most insured patients pay $0, and if a follow-up colonoscopy is needed, this is covered by most insurance plans. So if you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a Cologuard prescription today at Cologuard.com/podcast. The Cologuard test is intended to screen adults 45 and older at average risk for colorectal cancer. Do not use a Cologuard test if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease, and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colorectal cancer. The Cologuard test is not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. Cologuard test performance in adults aged 45 to 49 is estimated based on a large clinical study of patients 50 and older. False positives and false negatives can occur. Cologuard is available by prescription only.
Let's go a little bit deeper into the report findings. Just to go back for a moment, Sara, you had mentioned that this report came out after Freddie Gray's death in 2015, and it actually opens with that story highlighting how generations of youth have been affected by deep inequities in Baltimore. Ron, I'd love to hear from you on this as well. Can you help us connect the dots between the context that existed in Baltimore at that time, what barriers young people were facing around job pursuits?
Yes, I think there historically have been many barriers. And what I believe happens over time, over decades, is you have a level of frustration that is building up. And frustration on the part of those who live in the community, the youth in particular, and their experiences that they're having, sometimes too often at a very early age. And then you have institutions that are entrenched. And at points in time, there's a collision and something boils over, such as, the Freddie Gray event. And that experience triggers something on the side of the young people. And the institutions find themselves having to either scramble to do something different or to react in a very heavy-handed way to tamp it down. The word investment, I think, is very important because the Freddie Gray event triggered investment to try to address what was a very frustrating situation. Now we have questions about what is the return on investment. Otherwise, we find ourselves back in the same spot again and again and again. The youth were very clear in requesting what they need or what they feel they need. We want entrepreneurship. We want self-determination. We want it to be free of racism and inequity. We want to serve our community. If we do not provide them what they requested, we're setting them up for further frustration. And one of the, in terms of, let's say, trauma-informed approaches, a term that's often used, is to not re-traumatize those who have already been traumatized. That's a no-no. So we really have to be intentional about investments, making sure that we're getting a return on the investment, both for those who are investing and for those who are taking advantage of the resources, because they want a return also. And then we have to make sure we're not setting the young people up for further frustration because they already come to the situation frustrated.
Ron, what I really like about listening to you now is that it's a very measured response. I go back and I think about that time in Baltimore, and it was so packed with so many powerful emotions, a lot of anger. And what I think about is this collective message that articulated a deep dissatisfaction with how a large portion of the young population was being treated. Just to be very basic about it, I'd like to hear from you on the main obstacles. The Freddie Gray event happened in 2015, and yet Baltimore has been struggling for many, many years before that. When you look at a young person today, really, what are the basics of what they're up against? I've done some research on incarceration rates, on high school graduation rates. You talked about young people being very discouraged. What is the thing that gets them out of that?
I'm a big advocate of social emotional learning. I can be what I can see. So I think that exposure is absolutely key. Exposing them, whether it's a career that they may never have considered, whether it's putting them in a place or a setting where they can engage in just playful ingenuity and try new ideas. That exposure, the social emotional learning part of it, where they may have an example or a mentor or someone to walk with them through those experiences. That's the relational learning part of it. That's where trust is absolutely key. If you trust the person that is walking you through that and helping and guiding you through that, magic happens. The definition of trust is really a willingness to be vulnerable. But you can see the experiences just really are a barrier to you being able to open up and be vulnerable. If you can cross that barrier with a young person again, no other way to describe it, magic begins to happen. It's so key, it's so critical, and we have to do it individually, and we have to find a way to do it collectively.
I'm just taking a deep breath because it seems like a very steep hill to climb. And by the way, if you ever get out of academia, you should go into therapy, Dr. Williams, because I'm thinking, of all these incredibly important muscles that you're talking about helping young people to build, their social, emotional muscles, and that idea of trust and the willingness to be vulnerable when so many young people have seen being vulnerable as putting oneself in danger, right? I don't want to be hurt again.
Absolutely.
I don't want to go through that again. So that transition, how do you help people enter into that transition, start to change? And my second question for you is, have you seen the development of what I'll call the social emotional muscles in a person, once they are underway, act as a solve for whatever ongoing trauma they're experiencing at home with their friend group, wherever it may be? Does one sort of help the other once it's being developed?
Yes. You say, how do we get there? The first step is to be honest. Young people know when we're not being honest with them. So the first message is, this is going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And I think being honest with them, starting there, begins to establish a relationship that allows them to begin to be vulnerable with you. Because for some of them, it may be the first time anybody's ever told them that. Because I've been in education and higher ed, for 4 decades now, I've seen young people that I've encountered navigate that. And they may have lost a sibling to street violence. They may have some kind of trauma. And I can see it even as they overcome, because I've seen some of them go from that to having businesses, incredible businesses, being successful business people, to earning PhDs, but they never totally get beyond some of the behaviors that result from trauma. Now, a definition that I think we have to keep in mind, and it sometimes gets lost, is economics. Economics is a social science. It is the behavior of people in pursuit of scarce resources. If the resources are scarce, what behavior is a result of that? If I'm going to overcome the scarcity of resources, what action is it going to require on my part to deal with me and to deal with my environment?
Okay, sit tight, everyone. We're going to take one more quick break, and we'll be right back with more good things.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Think about your mentors and idols, the people who inspire you the most. While it may look like they have all the answers, they don't. But they do know when to ask questions and seek the support they need. In a world that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better with a support system behind us. Therapy is a great way to invest in yourself and find a consistent source of support in your life, so you can break free from the outdated belief that seeking help is a sign of weakness. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from anxiety and depression to relationships and stress. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with a click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. And you deserve that. You can even send your therapist a message anytime something comes up. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Hi, I'm Emily Deschanel.
And I'm Carla Gallo, and we're excited to tell you about Boneheads, our new Bones rewatch podcast.
I played Dr. Temperance Brennan.
And I played Daisy Wick, and we are going to watch from the very beginning.
We're going to watch the episodes. We're going to reminisce. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. We're going to tell behind-the-scenes stories.
We're going to go on tangents.
A lot of tangents.
So whether you're a seasoned Bones fanatic or a newcomer looking to dip your toes in to the wild world of forensic anthropology, this show is for you.
Boneheads from Lemonada Media is out now wherever you get your podcasts.
This is all intrinsic to the program that you've launched, Excel, Excellence in Entrepreneurial Learning. For people who want to get involved in Excel, can you tell us a little bit more detail about it? And what is the best way to get involved with the project?
Okay, Excellence in Entrepreneurial Learning is just that. We are sort of changing the paradigm when it comes to developing as an entrepreneur, putting learning first and up front. So we first started with a landscape analysis, looking at instructional programs and how they're structured, who they partner with, what are their success metrics, do they take trauma-informed approaches, what are their funding mechanisms? So we looked at all of that, which gave us sort of a foundation or a baseline to stand on. And then even after we released the report, we've had some community conversations because we wanted feedback on the findings. We've had community conversations. We've had focus groups with elected officials, with institutional leaders, with funders, with capital access and finance community. So now we're looking at what's next. And to get it to engage in that, because I believe the what next will encompass more partners. It will encompass a scaling of the paradigm shift, so to speak. And so you contact myself at Coppin State University, R. Williams at coppinstate.edu, or just call and ask for me. And that's how you get connected and find out what's coming up next. We do have a website that we'll be updating, and we'll have information as well, not only the Coppin site, but also where the report itself is housed.
Great. Sara, I want to go to you for a quick moment. Are there any stories that come to mind? I mean, I think it's so helpful always to hear of people that have gone through these programs, received funding, received mentorship, learned to learn, that stand out to you. You mentioned, the YouTube channel. What are some stories that stand out to you that are really examples that you carry with you and that you mention to people when you encounter them?
Absolutely. I love this, sharing stories like this. And this is really cool because this is a program, one of the 35 organizations that were interviewed for the Excel project. And they had kind of a dual role in this project. The organization is Heart Smiles. And so they were interviewed as part of the project, but they also had a really critical role in Excel. Once the data was collected, they joined the project team. There was 5 young people that are part of the Heart Smiles organization, and they're called Heartbeats. All 5 are current college students at both Coppin and Morgan State University, so 2 of our local HBCUs. And they helped to analyze the data that was coming in. Casey believes deeply in youth voice and youth engagement, and how are they perceiving the information. And then we're instrumental in disseminating the Excel report research, helped design a conference where this work was highlighted and showcased. And all 5, by the way, are entrepreneurs in lots of different ways, but also through Heart Smiles, this line of work that they've engaged in around their own lived experience, and how they showed up with Excel and became ambassadors, for a lack of a better word, for Excel and youth entrepreneurship in the city. So they were a key partner to this work.
That's fantastic. What do you want, Sara? What do you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
The Casey Foundation, one of our priorities in investment areas is around financial stability. We believe deeply that young people should have access to traditional employment or entrepreneurship to be successful and thrive economically. And I think young people are the economic future of the nation. I think about how, when working with the Heart Smiles team, as an example, their enthusiasm, their ability to execute in a timely way, the new perspectives and how we work together intergenerationally, it just gave me just a whole new outlook on and hope of young people and the future of the workforce.
Wow. I mean, to hear you say it gave me hope about the future of the workforce, that's good news. That's really good news. Okay, let me ask you this, Ron, because earlier in our conversation, you touched upon the development of trust as being key to starting on this path towards excellence in entrepreneurship. Have you seen that happen? What does that look like with a young person?
Absolutely. With a young person, it looks like small steps and a willingness to listen, to act, to challenge. Because if I trust you, I feel comfortable enough to even challenge what you're telling me. I feel safe enough to have my own voice and my own opinion and my own thoughts. But that happens in small steps. I think about that. Sara mentioned the heartbeats. It was such a joy working with the heartbeats. They were undergraduate researchers. They were conference planners. They were reviewers. They were presenters. They demonstrated their own brilliance. But what I recognized in them is the relationship that they had with the Heart Smiles organization. Over time, I was able to develop that relationship. One of the low points of the study was saying, okay, it's at the end, it's over. I'm not going to meet with the heartbeats every week like we did for so many months. So there was a relationship that was developed there, but it happens in small steps, and you have to be patient.
I think what's so beautiful about that idea that you were sorry to see it come to an end because the community that was created had value to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
I always learn as much from them or more than they learned from me, for sure.
Sara has a big smile.
I was just going to
face.
say that. I mean, it was every week. It was always a new learning, talking with them. And I think it's so important too, that as adults and caring adults in their lives, that we show up and we do what we say we're going to do. And we do it in partnership with them and we listen. I think that's also part of the trust building that we've been talking about so much.
Yeah, it takes energy and effort and intention on both sides, that we show up and we listen. As we help young people do the same. I'm relieved and I'm inspired, which I have not felt those two things together in some time after this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll be booking my next therapy appointment with you very soon, Dr. Ron. So I hope you have time in your schedule. Thank you.
Sure, anytime.
Thanks for this opportunity, Gloria. We appreciate it.
This episode was made possible with support from the Annie E. Casey Foundation. Learn more at aecf.org. Views expressed in this episode are solely those of the participants. Thanks for listening to Good Things. I'm your host, Gloria Riviera. This series is produced by Hannah Boomershine, Lisa Fu, and Arya Brachi. Our supervising producer is Muna Danish. Mixing and sound design by Noah Smith. Jackie Danziger is our VP of Partnerships and Production. Production support from Maggie Kraushaw. Executive producers are Stephanie Whittles-Wax and Jessica Cordova-Kramer. Help others find our show by leaving us a rating and writing a review. Follow Good Things wherever you get your podcasts and listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
This message is sponsored by Cologuard. Let's talk about colon cancer screening. I know a lot of you might hear that and instantly think about the drama of a colonoscopy. Taking time off work, drinking loads of prep liquid, undergoing an invasive procedure, fun stuff like that. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be that way? What if I told you there's a way to skip all of that drama with the Cologuard test? Now, do I have your attention? The Cologuard test is a one-of-a-kind way to feel more in control of your colon cancer screening through a prescription-based test with none of the prep that's required of a colonoscopy. It's the only FDA-approved, non-invasive test that looks for both altered DNA and blood in your stool, which can indicate the presence of abnormal cells. What I want our listeners to know is that even if you eat well and have a healthy lifestyle, that does not mean that you are low risk for colon cancer. The good news is that when caught at the early stages, colon cancer can be survivable in 90% of people, so screening and early detection are crucial. With zero downtime, no special preparation, and a screening test that's delivered right to your door, we shouldn't let our health take a backseat. I mean, this test costs $0 for most insured patients. What are you waiting for? So if you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a Cologuard prescription today at Cologuard.com/podcast. The Cologuard test is intended to screen adults 45 and older at average risk for colorectal cancer. Do not use a Cologuard test if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease, and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colorectal cancer. The Cologuard test is not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. Cologuard test performance in ages 45 to 49 is estimated based on a large clinical study of patients 50 and older. False positives and false negatives can occur. Cologuard is available by prescription only.
Want more from your favorite Lemonada Media podcasts while supporting the shows that help make life suck less? Subscribe to Lemonada Premium today. As a subscriber, you'll unlock exclusive bonus content like never-before-heard interviews, behind-the-scenes moments, bonus episodes, and so much more. It's easy to sign up no matter what podcast app you use. On Apple, you can just click the Lemonada logo in the Apple Podcast app and hit subscribe. For all other podcast apps, head to lemonada.supportingcast.fm to subscribe. That's lemonada.supportingcast.fm.